We're recording.
Okay, well, I will call to order the November 19th meeting of the Edina Transportation Commission. And I am thinking that roll call is first. Is that right?
You are correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Aller,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kane, Commissioner Lafferty,
Here.
Commissioner McCarthy, Commissioner Plum Smith,
Here.
Chair Richmond,
Here.
Commissioner Shearer, Commissioner Attree, Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Kariwala.
Here.
Nice to have all of you with us. Andrew, are you going to share your screen and put the agenda up, or do people have it up in another format?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Here we go.
I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the November 19 agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. We'll do a roll call vote. Please vote aye or yes if you are voting to approve the agenda.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane, Commissioner Lafferty,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy, Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Chair Richmond,
Aye.
Commissioner Shearer. Agenda is approved.
Fantastic. Okay. Next will be approval of the minutes that were submitted. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of the October 22nd meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please vote aye when your name is called.
Oh, sorry, bear with me for a moment.
That's okay.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane, Commissioner Lafferty,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy, Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Chair Richmond,
Aye.
Commissioner Shearer. Minutes are approved.
Okay, real good. We do have a kind of a short agenda, which is nice when we have these virtual meetings. So we have the traffic safety report first. We have, I think, 1A item. Is that right? Yep.
Yep.
Which is a request to relocate a no outlet sign for southbound traffic on Lincoln Drive. And the Traffic Safety Committee recommends adding a no outlet sign. Any comments or questions? Okay, moving on to the B items. The first was a request for parking restrictions on West 54th between France Avenue and Drew Avenue. So that's basically 2 blocks. Staff recommends no action. The street is wide. Comments, questions?
My only comment, I think we've talked about reviewing the Living Streets policy and kind of evaluating it, haven't we, Andrew?
Yes, that was an initiative that was on my work plan for 2020. It has since been postponed to 2021. So that is something that staff is going to be looking at next year.
Because I keep seeing there's a perception by residents that some of these widths are too narrow, because we keep getting things like this of residents being concerned that a street is too narrow, and the recommendation is usually do nothing because it meets the requirements. But I'm just just wanting to make note of an awareness that people's perception is that it's too narrow. Even if it really is wide enough for them to get through, they don't think it is. I think that's just something to consider when we do the review of the Living Streets policy.
So this section is also, if you remember the last meeting and we talked about the street reconstruction for next year, this is one of those streets. Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but West 54th on the south side, it's Edina, and on the north side of it, it's Minneapolis. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Which makes it a little more complicated. I mean, Edina could restrict parking on one side, but not the other, for example.
Correct.
Because that's Minneapolis. Having just walked there, I don't believe that there are curbs, are there?
There is curb for most of this section, but I think for the rest of 54th Street, continuing to the east, it doesn't have curb and gutter.
Okay.
At least on the Edina side. I believe the Minneapolis side has curb and gutter for the entire length.
Okay. All right. Well, given the reconstruction for next year, it wouldn't make sense to restrict parking right now, you think?
No, and of course I see the value of by having parking on both sides. We always talk about how that slows traffic. And that's why it's just worthy of
Right.
that review to keep considering, oh, now that we've seen a lot of these traffic safety reports that have the comments, just looking at it and starting to reevaluate it.
Yeah. Okay. Should we move on to B2? Anybody? Okay. This is safety concerns at Countryside Elementary. I haven't exactly figured out what they're asking for. Andrew, do you have a better beat on that?
Yeah, so like it says in here, the general traffic pattern that the school is trying to promote is for vehicles to enter from the north on Stewart and then to travel eastbound on Benton or to enter the school. But its traffic would generally move in an eastbound direction on Benton.
Yep.
However, there are some parents, residents who turn left onto Benton from Tracy, travel westbound, and they stop on the north side, let their student go out, and then the student has to cross the street to get to the school, crossing against that eastbound traffic. So I think generally the concern or the request was specifically for some kind of change to the parking restriction on that north side, because I believe parking is not currently restricted there right now.
Yeah. And it doesn't say that there have been any near misses, any misses, any hits, any near misses. Is that correct?
I don't know about near misses, but we don't show any accidents in this section in the last 10 years.
This scenario reminds me of Southview Middle School, and whether there's parking allowed there or not, parents are just going to slow down and let their kids out.
Right.
So if they could put a sign up or not, they're still going to, I believe they'll still do it.
Yep.
It's just there's so many cars at these schools in the early morning hours.
It does also seem as though if this were something that the school district wanted to take up with transportation planning, that would make a little bit more sense. But it does, since there haven't been issues other than that it's maybe frustrating and but really all this school drop-off stuff, it's all frustrating. So, okay, should we move on to B3?
I have one other question. Has this been relayed to the school district that there happens to be? I wouldn't be surprised if the resident is called the school district themselves, but.
It's a good question.
Say one comment I would make, given the exponential growth in students from outside the district, open enrollment, there's just a report that was given to the school board that shows that the Edina schools are expanding. I mean, exponentially. There's basically students are leaving at a record rate from within the community, but they're also bringing in significant numbers of people from outside the district to fill the void in lost revenue. So, I mean, just for whatever it's worth, this may be a problem that's going to keep getting exacerbated because all these kids that are coming from outside the district have to be driven. There's no busing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Carpooling seems like a good way to minimize some of the load. I don't know if there's incentives or support for that.
You can't really carpool during the world of COVID.
The thing about
I just want to comment on that. I know that every family is different, but from what I observe and what I'm hearing from my neighbors that have young kids, is they've formed a lot of groups where they hang out with. So you might be right, but I wouldn't want to say that it's just not possible with COVID.
Well, actually, I'm a little bit surprised about this right now because they should be going. There should not be the full load of students in the schools at any one time. So, but I would also say that as a parent of a former Edina elementary school student and then Southview student and then high school student, every one of those schools had a drop-off problem, and it was almost all Edina kids. So I don't know if it is or it isn't, but
I agree with you, Lori. I know people that live 3 blocks from these schools, and they will drive their kid to.
Exactly.
And so I don't think it is the people coming necessarily from outside the district that are clogging things up.
I'm just saying the trend is headed that direction. I mean, there was like 200 plus students that were added this year. I mean, I could pull up the report and show you. So, I mean, I don't know what that long-term effect is.
Edina parents are still going to drive their kids to school, and that is ultimately the problem.
Yeah.
Take the bus.
Right.
As a parent with young kids, I will tell you that more people are opting out of the bus this year because of COVID. I think that's an aberration for right now, which probably is why this is showing up. Number 2, I actually had to go to the school board a couple of years ago. The school board was trying to change their policy, which would make it so that if you were inside of the zone, you were no longer eligible for busing. And I was in a weird situation because if you counted the mileage by street, I was further than the zone, but they drew a circle in a radius around the school. So I was technically outside of that radius. And as a result of that conversation, I looked up a lot of other neighboring school districts, which allowed you to pay for fee for service for school busing. And we were the only one that didn't have that option. So now the school district is, in a normal year, offering fee for service for people that are inside of that. So it's not like it's not an option. They just need to pay, I think it was like $300 for the year is what they decided. And then your kid would be able to be picked up and dropped off from your location if you requested it. So those options do exist for people. I just want to make sure that people are aware of that. And I really do think that a lot of this right now is a result of people not comfortable with their kids riding on the bus because the lines to drop off their kids are pretty high, even with the 50%.
Yeah. I take the bus personally to school, or at least used to now because of the current situation. But many of my friends opted out of taking the bus this year just because of safety regulations. So many more kids are being drove to school now because of just the safety aspect.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of think all bets are off the table right now. And, it would be difficult to add restrictions or whatever because of the current situation, because I think we'll see something. I think we'll see it change in the next 6 months.
Let's hope.
Yeah, exactly. Should we go on to B3?
I guess just one last thing, Mindy, to answer your question, I don't know whether or not this complaint was specifically passed along to the school district, but I'll follow up with Nick on that.
Thank you.
And Andrew, just to that end, I mean, the school district could also, those lines are painted. So like for us, there's a specific orientation about how you're supposed to circle the parking lot. So if there might be a way that they could redo how cars are supposed to turn in and exit their parking lot. I don't know if that's possible. You know, like for example, the red lines, if they reversed those, like you came in the inner period and then you went out the green way, you could go either way you wanted. Does that make sense? And that's not an us issue. That's a what they're doing on their property issue.
Right.
It's about the streets though, Matt.
Yeah, the concern here is about vehicles that are dropping off students on Benton.
And then the students cross the Tracy.
Right. And they're probably doing that because like, as I've experienced in these lines, parents will pull in and their kids aren't ready and they'll sit there forever. So like they get stuck in the lot and they probably don't want to sit there for 5 minutes
Could be.
waiting for someone else to pull forward. So
That's why I think it's a school district issue, more so than it is a transportation kind of streets issue. Okay, moving now on to B3, which is requesting signage for bicyclists or motorists at West Shore Drive and the sidewalk connection. I don't know, at Aspasia? Is that how you say that?
Yep.
Okay. And I really could not figure this one out. Can you give us more insight?
Of course. So let me go to our mapping here and turn on our existing sidewalk layer. So in the existing. So between South Cornelia and Lake Edina neighborhoods, there's this one segment of sidewalk that goes along the backyards.
Oh yeah.
This piece here. So the concern that was raised are that specifically cyclists that are traveling eastbound along the sidewalk, when they come out to West Shore, they just shoot out without stopping to look for drivers, and likewise drivers may not necessarily be expecting someone to be shooting out of a sidewalk area there. So the request was for signage either at the sidewalk or somewhere else along West Shore, just to either warn or notify pedestrians, cyclists, or drivers of that condition.
Is there a sign on the actual trail that signifies that, or identify for the, coming out on West Shore? Is there a sign for the bikers, I guess, that would tell them to stop? I mean, I've seen those on many places.
There is not. This is an older street view. Let me go down a little. Here's a little newer one. This is what that entrance or the entrance or exit looks like onto West Shore, and there's no signage on it. Likewise, there's no signage to the north or south along West Shore.
And so why did the Traffic Safety Committee recommend no action? I mean, I can see that all users are responsible for checking sightlines, but it seems as though many of the trails, when they enter a street, have a stop or yield or something. And I'm just surprised about this one.
It's our belief that these incidents that were reported are kind of isolated incidents. We don't see it as a kind of a continuing issue. We also don't expect that, given the context of the sidewalk, that very many users are using it. So I don't disagree that maybe this happens, but I think it's probably isolated to very few times, as opposed to something that occurs every single day or multiple times a day.
Is this the cut through from the Park Lawn neighborhood to the Cornelia neighborhood? Is this that?
It technically cuts through between Lake Edina and South Cornelia.
Okay. So it's not as heavily used as the cut through from the Park Lawn neighborhood to Cornelia.
Correct. I think you're thinking of this segment down on Kellogg.
Yeah.
It goes by the former Fred Richards.
Yes, that's I was worried that it was that one.
Nope. And as you can see, this one, there's no other right now, there's no other sidewalk facilities in the area. Okay. But there is proposed sidewalks on West Shore proposed.
I mean, I know this wasn't asked, but to me, it seems reasonable to add a $50 stop sign to the park path. I mean, I don't know why that to me seems like a no-brainer. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure that needs to be one on the street, but the park path or the sidewalk, I mean, just even if it's a subtle reminder, might prevent problems, even though there hasn't been one yet.
Yeah, kind of in the same place that Peter is. I don't know why it would be a difficult or costly thing to add a stop sign there for bicycles and pedestrians. Anybody else?
I see your point, but I mean, common like safety knowledge is that if you're on a sidewalk entering a road, you stop and look both ways.
Yes, if you're grown up.
That is true, but that could then apply to so many sidewalks that lead to roads.
Yeah,
And I can think about it too. It just seems like, yeah, if you're a kid on a bike, that's probably a problem.
So I actually think of sort of like what's standard practice, and standard practice is, I mean, if you just look at the 9 Mile Creek Regional Trail, every time it crosses a road, it's got a stop sign there.
Yeah,
doesn't it? Or a yield or something. I just think it's common. It's a common practice to have bicyclists and pedestrians, at least bicyclists. The pedestrians, yes, if you're on the sidewalk and you're walking, like one would think you'd look both ways. But the bike thing is a whole different thing. The kids shoot out there. And I know coming off the 9 Mile Creek Regional Trail over in the same area, you kind of shoot out onto the road there as well. But hopefully trail users are more savvy and they do look. I don't know if there's a stop sign there.
I'd be inclined to support a stop sign for the trail users. I mean, just to help people understand.
I second that. Is that a motion?
Or I guess the alternative to the stop sign would be a sign that says cross traffic does not stop. Those have appeared in certain places too on the roadway. I mean, I just think making people aware that they should be looking both ways, regardless of the stop sign. I mean, usually we don't do stop signs for bikes.
Well, I think we do stop signs for bikes. It's the Greenway has them at every road that it crosses.
Yeah.
And that's so maybe it's not standard practice, but it does seem like it's at least common practice.
It might be good to know what is true on the 9 Mile Creek that already, as it runs through Edina now. If there's a stop sign at every intersection, then it begins to train bicyclists to expect that.
Mindy, I think she's referring, there's this one part where you can take a left and you head out into a neighborhood like that. And it's a little weird because you're going through the woods and you end up popping out by, I want to say it's like 66th or something like that. And I don't know that there's anything on that one either, but it's one of those weird ones where it's more of an access from the road to get to the trail through private property than anything else.
Yep.
I just wanted to, Anand asked a question in the chat about what ADT is. ADT is average daily traffic. So that's the average number of vehicles that travel on this segment per day. Sometimes you'll see it reported as AADT, which is average annual daily traffic. And that's an average of multiple days over the year.
That seems like a lot of cars to me to throw up a sign. I mean, really what the sign does is it tells you, hey, heads up, there's actually cars moving here. This is not a side street this is a street that you might get clipped on. So slow it down. If it's not there, you're less likely to worry about it. That's,
So would somebody like to make a motion about this, about B3? It seems that you could move to send it back to the Traffic Safety Committee for reconsideration of a stop sign on the sidewalk. Or something else.
I second that.
Okay, so did I move that then?
No,
Yep.
here, I'm happy. Well, I'm happy to move it. I'll make a motion to send it back to the Traffic Safety Commission for consideration of additional signage for the bicycle travelers, indicating either to stop or that the cross traffic does not stop on West Shore Drive.
Yeah.
I second that.
Okay. Please say aye or nay when your name is called.
Just a quick clarification. It's to install signage, not additional. There isn't any existing.
Correct.
Okay, so it's not additional signage.
Correct.
Thank you, Kurt.
Andrew, you want to roll for the vote?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane,
Aye.
Commissioner Lafferty,
I,
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Chair Richmond,
Aye.
Commissioner Shearer.
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
Awesome. Okay. Moving on then to B4. Goes to that crosswalk at Interlaken and Vanderbork. Comments, questions, concerns?
I noticed that in the staff comments, it says the crossing treatments exceed existing warrants. And I remember how many times, Andrew, you've reminded us that when there's a lot of where there's a crosswalk and cars don't see enough crossers, they tend to ignore it. And I'm wondering if that's what's starting to happen here, that it's a sign of drivers don't see the point of it, so they're not stopping or slowing down.
That's a good point. I'm not sure. I don't believe we have any more recent crossing counts than this 2016 one. My guess would be, in general, what I've seen as a result of the pandemic is that we've been seeing more activity among pedestrians and cyclists. So generally speaking, I would assume that the crossing level here is consistent, if not maybe higher than normal in light of the pandemic. But we don't have current data to say one way or the other. The other thing I'll say on the same note is, generally speaking, we've seen that traffic volumes throughout the city have decreased in light of the pandemic. I don't have specific numbers for Interlaken, but it's a general trend that we've seen.
So Andrew, just so I'm reading the bottom two bullets there, and it was the in-road sign and the dynamic speed sign. Were those would be the items that you would say exceed the warranted stuff in the area? Is that accurate?
The dynamic display speed sign, that is not specifically there because of this pedestrian crossing. That's there more for just general speed turns on Interlaken to try and as an enforcement tool. The two items that are that exceed the existing warrants would be the double-sided signs and the in-road sign.
Does this intersect with a trail? Like, I'm just curious why it was installed in the first place.
It does not intersect with a trail. If I go back to the map here. So this is the crossing here on Interlaken to Vanderbork. And the Vanderbork sidewalk itself only goes a block to the north to Hollywood. But the intention of it was to provide a path to Todd Park to the north. And then the interlocking sidewalk itself extends from Vernon to Mirror Lakes.
Now, what's that red line going
That's
north on Vanderburg?
That's a proposed sidewalk.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I turn this off, and here's all the existing sidewalks.
And do you think, I don't know, Interlaken certainly has had its share of construction on it, near it, on houses nearby and all of that. Do you think that has bearing? I feel like Interlaken is generally slower traffic. Folks are used to that. And that is one of the roads that is headed for a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit? Andrew?
Our current recommendation is, I believe our current recommendation is to keep Interlaken at 30.
Okay.
Part of that reason being that it's a significant collector for the neighborhood, and due to the concerns that we have about speed on it. As you can see, the 85th percentile speed right now is about 33. So the PD has concerns about their ability to enforce the 25-mile-an-hour limit there when people are already going above 30. The geometrics of the street also don't lend itself very well to reducing the speed limit to 25. I mean, unless we were also to make changes to the physical conditions on Interlaken, the speeds are likely not going to change if we drop it down to 25.
Okay. I was just looking for what has and will happen with the street. It seems likely that there will be increased traffic on it now that construction is done. But the crashes that occurred prior to this crosswalk, didn't it? I mean, this crosswalk hasn't been there for 10 years, has it?
No, but let's see. The crosswalk was installed. I believe one of these crashes at least one of them occurred after the crosswalk was installed.
Okay.
Because one of them, the one that occurred in 2015, that would have been after the crosswalk was installed.
Okay. Well, maybe this is one that the Traffic Safety Committee puts on its revisit this in 6 months list, because if the additional sidewalk is going in so that there's actually a great route to Todd Park, it seems possible that pedestrian traffic is going to increase there. And because people want a free-flowing Interlaken, and so they just zip down there, even though it says 30, unless police are there, people go a lot faster than 33 even. That maybe this is a good candidate for the blinking, the RR whatever. What is that?
RFBs.
Yeah. But
Hey, Andrew.
probably not this winter, but it's possible in the spring.
Hey, Andrew.
Yes.
So, just out of curiosity, so the double-sided signs and the in-road whatever, what is the ADT that would justify that?
Let's see. I don't know that off the top of my head. I would have to. I don't have my crossing policy handy, but I can look that up and get back to you on that.
No problem. I mean, I just think 9,500 is pretty high. I mean, from the perspective of ADT. So, I mean, I'm not throwing it out there, but if the cutoff is 10,000, I mean, there's a difference between something that's like a 3,000 car road trying to get a treatment that's 10,000 and something that's 9,500 and getting something that's 10,000.
Oh, sure.
I'm
No,
just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, that's a valid point. I want to say that that cutoff threshold is 15,000, not 10,000, but I'm not positive about that. I'll look up the policy and I'll follow up with you.
Okay, folks, do you want to do anything about this, or shall we see if anybody has any comments on any of the D items? Okay, hearing nothing. Any comments on any of the D items?
Yeah, what is a business bandit sign on D1?
Yeah,
I had to look that up too, because I had never heard that term before. A bandit sign is another term for those think of like a campaign yard sign.
oh,
So it's a temporary lawn sign.
Right. Don't know where the name comes from, but I Googled it and that's what some people call them.
It's not a very flattering word for a sign.
okay. Hearing no discussion on the D items other than business bandit signs, I'll take a motion to approve the traffic safety report with the one amended item to go back to the traffic safety committee on, and that is this B3, the stop sign on the sidewalk. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the traffic study with the exception Lori mentioned.
Okay, so with the amendment of B3. Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
Great. All in favor, please say aye when your name is called.
Commissioner Aller,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane,
Aye.
Commissioner Lafferty,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Plum-Smith,
Aye.
Chair Richmond,
Aye.
Commissioner Shearer.
Aye.
Great.
Approved.
Thank you. Moving on then to our 2020 work plan. And we'll take a quick swing through. This is our second to last month of activity on this work plan. So initiative 1 is Clover Ride Circulator, and
I'm not aware of any updates. Andrew, was there any feedback that you know of from the letters sent to the properties?
I've heard nothing since those letters went out. I guess if they sent me a letter and it's sitting in public they could have sent me a letter and it's sitting in my office in Public Works, but I also included my email and my phone number, and I haven't gotten any correspondence through either of those. I also haven't heard from, I know like it says last time Darts was looking into getting the plastic dividers in the rows to try and increase the capacity. I haven't heard anything more on whether that's been implemented or not.
I think so many things have been made difficult these days. Okay. Initiative 2, review and comment on traffic impact studies associated with proposed developments. There have been 2 in the last week. Andrew, help me out. One is the 66 to 6800 France.
Yep. And the
is
second is 7001 France.
7001 France. So one is the US, that the last one is the US Bank site, and
Correct.
And the first one is that spot, sort of kitty corner from the Edina pool.
Right. It's I believe right now it's called the Southdale Office Center, but it's also been referred to as the Avenue on France. It's the parcel that currently houses Tavern on France.
Yep. Okay. So, so I gave feedback on both of these developments. Andrew, you sent out the 7100 or 70, the US Bank site, right? You sent that out to the commission?
Excuse me. Yes, I sent 7,001 out, or 7,001 France out a couple weeks ago to get comments prior to the Planning Commission. I believe just a couple of days ago, I sent out 6,200 France. I didn't have time to send it out prior to the Planning Commission, but if commissioners want to provide any comments prior to the City Council meeting on December 1st, they can still get me comments by next Tuesday.
So folks, here's the deal about this. How many of you were on the commission? Well, we won't even go there. Many of you were on the commission when we finally actually put this process in place, when the Planning Commission said, yes, actually, we would like some input from the Transportation Commission. We were pretty excited about that because it made us, asking to have our input means that we actually get the opportunity to implement the transportation section of the comprehensive plan and give that feedback. So this is a pretty big deal. And Andrew, did you hear from anybody other than me on either of these?
I haven't heard from anybody on 6,600 so far, and yours were the only comments I received on 7,001.
Okay. And I sent my 6,600 ones directly to Ian.
Okay.
But, you know, I think maybe you knew that because I had forwarded you the email where he said he really appreciated your report, good report on that one. And I mostly echoed your report, added a couple of things. So I'd kind of like to have a conversation with you folks. I know that everybody's busy doing every other thing, but this feels like a big deal, and it's on our initiatives for next year. So is this something that folks feel like we can continue to do? Because it doesn't make sense if I'm the only one providing input on this stuff.
So Lori.
Yes.
Where did you say, I mean, do we get to see your input, or was it something that you just sent direct and Andrew include in the package to City Council? How does it work?
I send Andrew asks us to send feedback to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent my feedback to him and was not aware that nobody else commented.
Yeah, but wouldn't we all want to look at that feedback so we can see what makes sense for this commission, or just do it individually?
So
because these two developments are extremely important, especially
They are.
The 7,000, the US Bank one is extremely important. The traffic safety study is very critical.
Yep.
Right? So we need to discuss those here. I think it's a good idea to do that, or at least know what we're thinking, because I looked at the plans and I see the traffic safety study. I wouldn't say it's meager, but I think we can do better. Okay? Because we already have a building at the Guitar Center. We're going to have another building there, and it's France Avenue pouring into 7S. That's going to be a major constraint. I think these are critical things we need to discuss at the commission.
So Bokar, if you remember when we put this process into place, the issue for us and for the Planning Commission is that we meet once a month, and they meet twice a month, and we don't have the time to meet as a commission to discuss these. And so the system that was put in place was that each one of us looks at the developments as we're able and sends our feedback into Andrew. So for you to look at the development and the information and send your comments into Andrew at that point and say whether you think the traffic study is not sufficient, or you think there are parts that are flawed, or whatever it is, that's your opportunity to send that to Andrew. But did you do that?
No, I did myself. I didn't do that. I was hoping to talk through it right here, because again, like I'm saying to this, what I see as an opportunity, I think the traffic safety study could be wider. You have Target, you have Byerly's, you have Galleria, you have Christmas, holidays, shopping is going to be packed. You have a ramp, not a ramp, like a parking lot of about 30 stalls. You're going to replace it with about over 1,200 parking stalls. You're going to have a jam. So I think the developers who are developing the US Bank site have a great opportunity to work with the developers that are already building at the Guitar Center. They have to find that easement so the flow of traffic is easier.
So,
You're going to also need to,
I want to stop you because discussing that development is not really what we're doing right now in this initiative, because your concerns about that were due to be sent to Andrew last week. It's too late, I believe, on that, isn't it, Andrew? I mean,
it's not in front of the council.
Oh, Andrew, you're muted.
Is it
to council
24th?
Sorry, it's too late to get comments to the planning commission because they met yesterday, but commissioners can still get me comments between now and the 24th, which is Tuesday, and then I will include those in the memo that goes to council.
Correct. So
and that's specific to that 7001.
correct.
To both.
To
Both
both
of them.
Okay.
So, hey, Laura, because I've only been on since March, I guess I got those, but I wasn't really, other than provide comments, I wasn't really understanding what exactly I should be looking for. Can you give us an example of what precipitated this being added? So was there something that happened that got missed, or what I mean, what should I be looking for? Because there's a ton of information
There is.
in that, and I perused it, but I don't even know what, I don't know what to look for. What are we supposed to be looking for? What?
So significant, the most significant thing that I think we should be looking for is whether the development plan aligns with or does not align with the goals of the comprehensive plan. And so actually when Andrew and Carrie send their staff memos, they identify elements of the comprehensive plan that either do or don't really fit the development. And so we look at that. Bokar, as an engineer, tends to look at the studies themselves and look for the data behind the recommendations. So we all have a little bit of a bent, and we didn't ask for this kind of in isolation. The Planning Commission has also said, yes, they get this huge traffic impact study with some summaries, but it's a lot of data for them, and that's just one of the things they're looking at. And so they thought that they would like to get our input. And so, for example, one of the things that I look for, we have really two goals that are around multimodal transportation. And so is the bicycle infrastructure and the pedestrian infrastructure sufficient to meet the needs of a multimodal Edina? So that's one of the things I pay attention to. And, a number of other things. And I like to read Andrew's memos on them because he's very complete. He does a great job. And then, and then the things that we know can be issues. So turning vehicles across pedestrian and bike lanes, delivery vehicles, and because we know when there is not sufficient space for delivery vehicles, they park them in the middle of the road, right in front of traffic or bikes or pedestrians, and then they just unload things, and that's not really the way we want to operate in Edina either. So those are some of the kinds of things that we look for. Andrew, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation. The purpose of my memo is really to kind of summarize all the data that's in the traffic. It's dual purpose. It's one, to summarize all the data that's in the traffic safety report, and to discuss kind of the findings and the recommendation of that report. I don't in my memo, I generally don't necessarily say whether I agree or disagree with certain findings or recommendations. Occasionally I do, but I never say if this recommendation were to be implemented, here's the consequence of it. For example, one of the proposals recommended adding an additional dedicated right turn lane to a direction that already has 2 through lanes. So a concern that I raised with doing that is now you're having 3 travel lanes that a pedestrian or cyclist has to cross instead of just 2. So I noted that and said, if this happens, the developer might also want to consider putting in a pedestrian refuge island to provide that additional protection. So on the one hand, that's some of the things I include in my memo. On the other is to go through all of the comp plan goals, the small area goals, moving streets goals, and to assess how this plan supports those goals, and to render an opinion on whether or not it does or whether or not certain aspects could be improved.
So let me give you an example of that. So one of the goals that we had, I think it's still a goal in the comp plan, is to reduce the amount of surface parking in Edina. Well, so the 66 to 6800 surface, at grade or above grade to actually reduce that. Well, the 66 to 6800 plan had 3 parking ramps above ground. It's like, well, that's not actually where we want to be heading with parking. I mean, below ground or 1 ramp, so it's not consistent with where we wanted to head with the comp plan. It doesn't mean that rules out that development, or that it even if they just changed one of those ramps, that it doesn't. We don't make really a recommendation. We give feedback on it.
And Lori, just to go all the way, this is Bruce, just to go all the way back to your your main thrust here. I was here when this initiative was started, and I supported. I thought it was a good idea that is another citizen body that gets to weigh in on these things. And I didn't do it, and I feel a little guilty about it, and I'll do better next time.
You're awesome, Bruce.
You're right on it. You're right, though. It's something we asked for. We should do it. And Andrew, I'll send some comments before next Tuesday.
So the reality is we don't need every single commissioner to do it every single time. But if we only have one of us, then we're not doing as well as we really could do. If we had 3 or so, that would be awesome. And
okay. Andrew, quick here. Andrew?
Yep.
For the 7,000, the US Bank building, did you already submitted your comment already?
I submitted my memo to Planning Commission, but I haven't. I'm planning to update the memo if I get any more comments for council.
Can we take 30 seconds and just go through that memo and see what it includes? Because, by the way, that building 7,000, it's a beautiful rendition, absolutely gorgeous. Okay, but we have to have, the city has to have a very clear clarity on what 7 years is going to be and what it need to be, because you're going to have that roundabout, you're going to need to change it, and you're going to have to talk about, you already started talking about the throughput. So do you mind just giving us a 50,000 level view of what you put in, since it didn't go to council yet?
I don't know.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Is that something that you could do offline? Like maybe if you, Bokar, maybe there's another person or 2 that would want to join you, Andrew, and do that? Because I've already been through it.
Yeah, but Lori, the majority haven't been through it yet, right? We all fumbled, right? So it's a great opportunity to give everybody, especially when you have new commissioners that need to be up to speed, right? So they can give a better contributions.
Yes, agreed. But Andrew does have his, if everybody reads his memo and then you have a conversation, that seems like a better use of time, because you'll, instead of asking him off the cuff to summarize his memo.
Maybe he has written, I don't know.
I don't have my memo memorized, and I don't know that I could succinctly summarize all of the information or conclusions that are stated in it. But I would certainly be willing to have a conversation with you offline about it.
Yeah, that's fine. I thought you had it already written. I apologize. It's an email you sent already, so.
I do have it written. I just don't have it at my fingertips right now. And it's, if I recall, it's like an 8-page memo or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's significant.
You know, here's a suggestion. I think there are times, I have 2 ideas. I don't know if they're any good, but one is, as far as reviewing, we can all try and do better. Or we might ask for volunteers to do an in-depth review and everyone else read it, you know, more casually. The NIH grant review process has this. They have principal reviewers and they have secondary reviewers. And I don't know if that would work for us. So we always have at least 2 pairs of eyes promising to read them in depth. And then the other idea is what Bob Carr's talking about makes some sense to me. I don't think right this minute, but the idea that there might be certain critical issues that we wanted to discuss as a group. And I think any reviewers that want to raise the issue, if the timing works at one of our meetings or even an ad hoc meeting, if the issues rise to a certain level of importance, might be helpful.
Can I chime in briefly? I just wanted to briefly say my frustration with these, you know, and I agree with Bruce. I think that we should all do better. I mean, I read them. I didn't particularly find a need to comment on them. But I think that the issue that I have, you know, and I'm not trying to create a 2-step process here, but I think that there's a jurisdictional issue here again with the Planning Commission. And I will say that the Planning Commission clearly has the ability and the authority to manage anything around the site. I think that the bright line to me is that anything off of that site. So when I say that, I mean all of the roadways surrounding it, how you get in, how you leave, how you know, what you do, or what the impact it has to the street certainly should be the purview of this committee and not necessarily the purview of the Planning Commission. So my belief again is that there should be some sort of a formal process that comes through this committee to deal with impacts on the street system. The Planning Commission is more than welcome to deal with whatever it does in terms of building heights or other restrictions, but I don't know that, you know, I feel like they're still infringing on our turf if we don't have an ability to actually do a full hearing, do a full meeting, talk about it in these meetings, and put forward a recommendation to the Planning Commission. And I've thought that since before we started this, and I continue to think that. I think that it's really our purview to deal with street and mobility issues.
I agree with Matt 100% because I was on the streets the last few weeks. That's the only thing I would hear from citizens. They all talk about it. I think we ought to do a better job at this one.
Okay, are we ready to move on? The only thing I wanted to add for you, Matt, is that both of these properties are big enough that there's transportation. That actually there are walkways, pedestrian ways, and vehicle ways actually through these properties. And so while they're not the streets, for example, the 7001 France had some pedestrian and even some bike, well, multi-use paths, but they didn't connect up to Promenade. And so is that our purview? Is that Planning Commission? I, think it's ours because we want a bike system that doesn't leave people hanging, that connects things. So anyway.
No, Lori, I agree with you. I think that the Planning Commission is overstepping the bounds of the commission is all I'm trying to say. And I think that we need to have more of a say in how this works. So I would like to see a process in which we're more involved, in particular, because the Planning Commission really doesn't have any purview over the transportation system, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Can we be done with this now? That was my plea to have some of the rest of you take a look at these and comment on them so that it's I mean, Andrew does an awesome job, really, that, you know, in a funny sort of way, none of us really are all that necessary because Andrew does it already. But we can sort of push on particular areas of the comp plan that we know exist and want to give input on. So, okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, if I may, I would disagree that the commission is not necessary, because while I appreciate the compliments on the memos that I write, I don't have that community perspective that all of you commissioners provide. So that is greatly valued by staff and by the planning commission and by city council. So I don't want to diminish the possible impact that your comments could have.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Initiative 3 is the TDM, and Kirk and Bruce, do you have anything to add on that?
I don't think we do. We're in a little bit of a holding pattern, just waiting for the staff plan on this, I think.
Yep, that's for status last week. Andrew, do you have any news?
Other than it's still in progress, and I apologize profusely for keep having to push it back. But it's on my staff work plan for this calendar year, so I have to have it done by December. So it will be presented at the December meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then initiative 4 is Andrew's, kind of yours also, the completion of the framework for traffic impact studies. But Bokar and Jill, you're on this. Anything new there?
No, unless
We
Andrew
haven't
has
received
something.
any data or anything to look at, so.
I'm just about done with my draft for this kind of policy or framework, if you will. I'm planning to send it to Bokar and Jill before Thanksgiving to have them do a cursory review of it before I bring it to the commission in December.
Great. Awesome.
Great. Initiative 5, 6 educational activities.
I think we're done,
Okay.
right?
It's done.
Okay, cool.
Hey. So we don't have to ever ask again next time.
We will never speak of this topic again unless we want to reuse it and make it better next year or another time.
Is there any value in looking at the report that came to us from communication about how many touches, sorry, I'm using all the wrong words, for these posts? I don't have any way of interpreting whether those were good numbers or not.
I think it's great to have that for a benchmark because it felt like to me it was getting our feet wet and getting out good education, and then we could see about how other activities can improve in outreach. But yeah, if somebody wants to look at it or share it, it's available.
Maybe this is attached to this, or maybe you could tell me to just hold this till my comments, but I wondered if it would be appropriate to, Edition Edina comes out monthly, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. You know, a lot of people now have Sidewalk, didn't have Sidewalk before. So perhaps a reminder to that they're responsible for shoveling and getting that cleared within whatever time period that is. And then also, I would really love to have folks not use salt and use maybe pet safe de-icer or whatever. I mean, the idea is that that these are pedestrian areas, and some people who walk are old, and I think we want to be careful to keep them cleared. So is that would that fit in this, or should we just talk about it later in our comments? And or should I just write an article to put in Edina Sun? I mean, the Sun Current.
I think that's a great suggestion. My guess would be that it sounds like something that the city probably regularly does when we come up to the winter months. But I can certainly talk to communications about whether or not they have interest or capacity to put an article like that in addition to Edina.
That would be great. Can you include the minimizing the use of salt and also using pet safe products?
Sure.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
It's also a good topic for the Energy and Environment Commission to partner with and be aware of, participate, support.
And then Initiative 6 is traffic safety reports, which we're doing. And we did the CIPs last month, didn't we? Yep. So that's 2020. Moving on then to the 21 work plan proposal update. Is it still a proposal now, or is it a done deal?
It is still a proposal. So I'm pulling up the work plan with the city manager comments. Hopefully all of you were able to look at it. Generally, there weren't any major changes. Some slight rewording of the description of the initiatives. The one kind of major change is the same one that I suggested, which is combining the TDM and the traffic impact study reviews into the same initiative. Scott presented these to City Council at a work session on November 4th. And now council will be approving them on December 1st at that regular meeting.
Okay. And do you want to talk about that organized trash collection possibility?
Oh, the Vantage group?
Yeah.
Sure. So recently I was put in touch with a gentleman who's a director of Minnetonka Public Schools Vantage program, which is kind of, it's an advanced placement student program where they basically earn course credit while tackling real world business problems or business issues. So they do, every class does a slightly different project. And they reached out to us wanting to assist with looking into organized trash collection, which the timing works out really well because this is on the ETC's work plan for next year. So they've sent us kind of a draft charter of kind of what their scope of work would look like. I've sent that to a few commissioners to review and look at. But if this work plan initiative is approved, and if we decide to partner with this group of Minnetonka high school students, they would assist the commission basically in doing some research and preparing a kind of a preliminary report, if you will, to help assist with this initiative.
I think that's pretty cool. Jill,
I think it's a fantastic idea, and the information that Andrew gave us, and I think it's super important to get a younger generation involved in what's going on in these cities. I like their outline and their question. I'm curious as to how they're going to access the data and what math model they're going to use to actually come up with some results. And so I'm all for it. I'm assuming that we're invited to these meetings that they have starting in February. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Right. And so, I mean, I'm always for the more the merrier. So yeah, I think it's gonna be fun.
Cool.
I would love to be a part of this initiative, help recruit other students with this initiative as well. I just feel like this is a great opportunity for so many students to help just make the environment in Edina just greener overall and just help clean the city.
Nice.
I would also like to
Social media for it, Anna.
Yeah, we could make a social media post. Get the younger generation through Instagram. Yep.
I would also like to partake in it, as I have also done some of these projects before, and I think it'd be cool to do again.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
It's gonna be a good project.
It is. Thank you for agreeing to head it up, Jill. And Anand and Anna, you're on. That's excellent. Okay, Initiative 2, the Street Funding Task Force. Matt, this one's yours.
Sure. So
want-
we've continued to meet pretty regularly, actually bi-monthly, and we've had a lot of good conversations. Actually, last week we ended up meeting with City Council so that we brought forward 3 different options for how to redo this. All of them would transition somewhat away from the current policy of 100% assessment. One of the things that we had identified throughout the course of it, Andrew, I don't know if you have the slide that we were working with that talks about the subcut. Are you guys aware of what a subcut is?
No.
Okay, well, yeah, I'll briefly describe it. So as part of our investigation, when we were looking at these assessments over the past number of years, anywhere between 10 and 30% of your assessment cost is something called a subcut. So depending on where you are in the city, it depends on what's underneath your street, determines how expensive this is going to be. So one of the things that was of universal agreement to the committee was that the city should put on the property tax the subcut so that everyone who pays an assessment is paying for the same stuff, which is the 8 inches of gravel that go underneath the road, the 4 inches of pavement, and the restoration from the curb over, so that there'll be a little bit more uniformity there. One of the subcut, long story short, it goes from like, hey, we need to remove 6 inches of soil and backfill that, to, hey, we need to take out 2 feet of soil and backfill that, which substantially increases the cost. So just from a fairness perspective, making sure that residents are paying for apples to apples was one thing that in all of the plans we decided to take onto the property tax. The 3 plans that were out there, there was one plan that was eventually moving to 50-50, where 50% of it would be paid for by property tax and 50% would still be assessed, transitioning over a 15-year period. And then there were other members of the commission that are residents who felt that it was important to move to 100% property tax and 0% assessment. So there were 2 plans for that, one that would transition over a 5-year window and one that would transition over a 15-year window, excuse me. And the reason why we kind of landed on that 15-year time frame was that currently you're allowed, if you are assessed, to take that and amortize it over 15 years in your property taxes. So that way, with the gradual phase on for those folks who've just been recently assessed, they're not going to be too double taxed, if you will. We brought all those to City Council. We had a good chat actually on Tuesday, so 2 days ago. And the council kind of indicated that they felt that it was a little bit too politically sensitive to take on the 5-year transition to 100%, but we're sort of divided on whether we should maintain an assessment policy at all or transition to 100% property tax over a longer period of time. So they asked us to continue investigating the 50-50 plan over 16 years or the 100% plan over 16 years. So, I, as well as the majority, I'd say, of the members of the committee are in favor of moving gradually to a 50-50 plan over the course of 16 years for a few reasons. Mainly my thinking is that maintaining some form of an assessment allows people to know what they're paying for, which is right in front of their home. I am sensitive, I guess, to the understanding that if we were to put this into property tax, there's a little bit more capture in terms of people paying for the time that they live here. But it's been a challenging discussion, and I think it's part of it's balancing what would be tenable for the community and for people who've been recently assessed. We've been able to uncover throughout the course of this that about 33% of the city is probably living in a home that's been assessed since they've been there or that they paid for it with cash. So they're either currently paying or paid for it with cash. So it's a pretty big chunk of the city that's impacted, and there's still 25 more years to go until we complete all of the restoration. So there is a lot of data that we've been going over, but if anyone does have any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them either now or have a chat offline if you're interested in the topic.
Thank you. That's awesome. Initiative 3, Clover Ride. Mindy, you're the lead on that. And any questions on what we're going to do in 2021? We don't have to report on these at this point because this is these are initiatives for next year.
Right.
This looks good to me.
Okay. Traffic safety reports kind of lives with the chair. And I think that stays the same. Capital improvement projects, same. And traffic impact studies. At the moment, that stays the same. And TDM, which we combined with the traffic impact studies.
Right. So essentially, the traffic impact study initiative for this year will stay the same with the addition of the travel demand management review.
Yep.
As part of it.
Okay. And it seems like that's already in play, isn't it? It seems like that's what I remember reading in the reports.
I do have some TDM recommendations in my report right now.
Yeah.
What'll change after the staff policy is reviewed is it'll be more explicit. Does it meet this policy or does it not?
Okay. Okay. And then we still have that parking lot of neighborhood electric vehicles and boulevard trees. And
Can you comment briefly, what is the electric vehicles again?
yeah, was that yours, Peter?
Yes, so I just over the summer I had learned that several cities, suburban cities, are adding or have allowed basically they're souped up golf carts, essentially, or not souped up, but sort of street legal golf carts. And given our interest in alternative energy, electric vehicles, and even to some extent the is it the equality or the covering everybody in the community, there it may be something to consider, even and also something for the city to be using for vehicles, so.
Well, thanks. That makes sense. I see examples. Thank you, Andrew.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
They look like really souped up golf carts. And as the council heard, I continue to be interested in, and as does Kirk, in doing something around boulevard trees, but we'll have that discussion in 2021. Okay, so back to the agenda. I think we're on chair and member comments, and I apologize, Matt, I put you in the 2021 work plan proposal update, so we already got your funding task force update.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but I mean, if anyone has any questions, I'm sorry. I guess I just dovetailed into my own whole spiel. But if anyone has anything that they'd like to know more about, happy to talk about it.
I'll also send the draft report that the task force put together. I'll send that out to the rest of the commission.
Oh, by the way, I did forget to mention one other thing that we are talking about briefly throughout this is trying to look at other aspects of it, and that's something we're all going to be pulling back and investigating a little bit more. I don't know, for those of you who've been on the commission a little longer, you might recall that there was one up Dakota trail in Edina near me that had a big retaining wall that was put in that substantially increased the cost. So we're looking at retaining walls, street lighting, and a few other kind of things like that, as well as also reevaluating. Technically, the city does have a policy that you're not allowed to put your irrigation system or your pet fence within 3 feet of the right-of-way, because that falls in the zone that would be dug up and then replaced during the restoration project. Currently, the city, currently the cost of the project includes restoring that. However, if you don't have one of those items, you're essentially paying for your neighbor's system that is put outside of city guidelines inside of the right-of-way. So we're looking at maybe whether those residents that have those two amenities should be responsible for their own repair, as opposed to putting that on neighboring residents who may not have an irrigation system or a pet fence. So there's a few other little ins and outs here. I just wanted to kind of throw those two out there. So there's a lot of different aspects of this that we're looking at, and it's a lot more complicated, I think, than most of us thought at the outset. And again, you know, I did want to, I forgot to mention, this is the only other thing I'll mention. So Lori, you know, I know you live in those blocks where they're more, I would consider those more city blocks, right? Where there's a lot of houses on the street.
Yep.
Versus over where I live, where there's more space. So one of the concerns is that, you know, when we divide the project costs up, a number of years ago, they went over to what's called residential units as opposed to frontage, because it used to be based on how many square feet of frontage you had. And they did that because people that were on corner lots were essentially double taxed because they had two sides of their lot. So that made sense. But then when you get into these REUs, one of the big challenges is for neighborhoods like yours, Lori, you can divide the cost over a lot more households. So over in the west side of town, you end up in situations where there might be like a $5 million house next to some property that might be worth $500,000 or $600,000, but their assessment would be the same, and there's no way to equalize that by law.
Yep.
So it's just really been a challenge to try to get kind of full clarity on this in terms of balancing it between those sides of the city that are more dense and those that are less dense. And we just struggle with that, I think, as a city, because we're a blend of both, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I grew up on Mohawk Trail, Matt.
Yeah.
So I know the west side pretty well.
I'm on Iroquois. So I was in your backyard, maybe.
Yep. Okay. For
Can I ask
the rest of you,
I have one question on that specifically. Matt, is there any public comment period once those have gone to council, or is it simply going to be at the point where it'll go to council? My neighborhood is always looking for those opportunities to spread the word.
So Mindy, the council, so we did our work session. The next step really is going to be that public notice perspective. From here moving forward, we're going to kind of propose the two, I think we're going to do a little bit more work, and then we're going to put the two plans out there and let people kind of, comment on them, you know. And part of what our mission that we decided as a group was that the plurality of Edina residents would figure that it's fair. So, you know, there's no way in a lot of these issues to make it completely fair for everybody. In particular, you know, those who are recently assessed, if we're now, the city's taking on more, like they feel slighted, right? Whereas those who are about to be assessed would probably want the 5-year transition to 100% property tax so everyone else pays their assessment, right? So, you know, in a perfect world, I feel like the property tax paying for everything would be the best way to go. But how do you get there with the transition? And that's what we've really struggled with along the way, which is kind of why I landed on that 50-50. Try to keep the number down so that your homeowners aren't shocked with a $20,000 to $30,000 bill. But at the same time, everybody has some skin in the game. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So watch Better Together Edina for upcoming public comment.
And there will be an opportunity to do that. And I think, I would hope that there are people who would voice their opinion, whether or not they have ever received an assessment, are planning to receive an assessment, or have not received an assessment, you know, because I think that all sides of that are important in terms of us making a final decision and sending that to council. And I say that, you know, one of the things that we've been getting a bunch of public data requests, to be honest, which is fine. And that's just part of the process. But as a resident myself, in our former home, which we sold, we had an assessment done. So we had to pay that off when we transacted our real property. And now we're in a new home, which has yet to have the street reconstruction done. So assuming we stay here for another 25 years, I mean, I'll get to experience it twice. So you know, we have a variety of perspectives on the commission or the work group, and I feel pretty good about all the different members and their different perspectives that we're going to hopefully try to balance a lot of those different needs.
Sounds good.
That's an enormous amount of work. So thank you for doing that. You obviously have an understanding that I certainly do not. So thank you for your energy and effort on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you,
great.
Matt.
Thanks. Happy to do it. You know, I used to do a lot of this for a living, so I know a few things about transportation finance.
Okay, instead of maybe just going through the roll call, maybe we'll just have folks jump in if they have member comments. Anybody?
I do have a couple. I attended, Hennepin County is creating a climate action plan, and I attended one of their public review sessions that they were inviting people to. And I was invited to it through my work on climate change, but I quickly found myself listening as a transportation commissioner because a lot of other people were bringing up comments about bike and pedestrians and transportation issues as part of the Hennepin County Climate Action Plan. So it's something that when the next round comes about, I'll make sure that I send that to Andrew to invite the rest of you as participants for those kinds of review plans. They're at the beginning they're at the beginning of the planning, and they were just inviting public comment from a lot of different organizations, including they have one session that's just specifically geared to youth and to students that they're inviting comments from. One thing that I learned as part of that is a group in Minneapolis called Our Streets Minneapolis that is specifically looking to make it easier to cross county roads that are within Minneapolis. And I immediately thought of France Avenue also being one of those county roads that we often talk about difficulty for pedestrians crossing. Some of the time, France Avenue is the border between Edina and Minneapolis. It is not one of them that they're focused on, but I didn't know if anyone else was familiar with this or if it's something we should be paying some attention to. How are they going about doing it? Because if they succeed in getting more input to county roads, that's something I think we've often found challenging in Edina. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
If I don't want to cut anybody off if there are any other member comments, but I can jump in with mine. The first one is not sure quite how we left we're all going to pay more attention, Andrew, when you send out the development plans. But since the email that you send out goes to a group, but we don't have access to see it. If we hit reply all, will it go to everybody or will it not?
It will not. When I send it to the commission, I send it as a blind carbon copy to avoid serial communication, which is a violation of open meeting law.
Yep. Can you, if you were to give us 2 days to respond, not with what we're doing, but whether or not we are interested in commenting on that one, then you should hear back from folks, yay or nay, that they're going to take a look at it. Then could you send that out to the group to say, here are the commissioners that are committed to reviewing this plan? Or even 24 hours. I'm not sure how often people look at their emails, but.
So if in the initial email that I sent out, if I say, if you're interested in providing comments, let me know. And then, and is that what you're asking? And then like a day or two later, send another email out saying, these are the commissioners that have agreed to review it.
That's what I'm asking. And if nobody does, would you send that out, or there's just one person? so that if we're agreeing that there should at least be, two sets of eyes that review the plans and give comments, then if we know that only one person has volunteered, then maybe that will sort of up the ante for the rest of us. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I can work that out.
Andrew? I have
Yes.
a quick question for you. So as somebody, I used to work at the Department of Administration and manage public records, and I understand serial communications and not wanting to create like an open meeting. I get it. But, I mean, all of this is public data. So if I wanted to, I could send you a public records request and get it. So can we not just submit these in PDF and you can send it out to all of us again, CCing or BCCing all of us? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out why we can't have a dialogue about this issue per my earlier comments.
There can be a dialogue. There just can't be a dialogue of a quorum or more of members without public notice being given.
Which again brings me to the fact that I think we should just be the first line of defense and or just a different line that people have to go through to have this conversation. Like, I understand the Planning Commission doesn't want us to run roughshod over them, but I feel like there needs to be a separate process for the transportation infrastructure that interacts with any sort of a project. I'm just going to make the comment again.
So the other thing that I could do is I can, just like the process is now, request that the commissioners send their comments to me. When I receive those comments, I can distribute them to the group if the group would like. That way everybody sees what other commissioners have commented on.
I think that would be a good reminder and a good impetus for the rest of us to respond. Would everybody else agree?
Yeah, I do.
I do too.
I agree.
Much more efficient.
Yep. And Matt, I don't disagree where we like us to go. This is the first step, and it's a giant step, because before this there was nothing. We had no input. We
I don't
didn't even know
disagree.
developments
No,
were
I
happening.
totally get it.
So this is the first step, and I'd like us to do a good job with first step so that we can have a second step at some point.
I appreciate that, and I commit to doing a better job at that. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so that was my first one. The second one is actually a little bit more personal. Andrew, do you have any idea when France Avenue at 58th is going to be completed, and when the county is going to turn on the lights, because the signals? Because for those of us that cross it on foot, it's a little hair raising.
Sorry, the questions were, when is 58th going to be completed and when are the signals going to be turned on?
No, France. When is
Oh,
France going to be completed, and when is the county going to turn? I know that the guys who have been working on the road tell me that they just Exxon Energy just ran electricity to the lights 2 days ago, but they have no idea when those signals are going to be turned on.
I don't know. I'll have to check with our design and construction group with that. But I can follow up with you on that.
Okay. I think the residents in the area would appreciate it. It's been a year, just like everything else, right?
Right.
That's all I have. Other than that sidewalk care thing.
Sure. Do we want to move into staff comments?
We do.
Okay. On regarding 58th, I was going to say, as far as I know, the final layer of asphalt is supposed to be done by tomorrow. Sounds like it hasn't been done yet, but
Well, no, they've done quite a bit of it, but they have not finished it.
right.
Okay.
So from as far as I know, they're supposed to finish it tomorrow. The restoration work is expected to continue on into the next spring, as with most of our reconstruction projects. The city recently received a petition against the Beard Avenue sidewalk in the Creek Knoll project area for next year. So this is the Beard Avenue sidewalk between Minnehaha Creek and 54th Street, that border street with the city of Minneapolis. And there were about 70 plus signatures on that petition. I don't know how many properties though that represents, but that's how many signatures.
About 4. Really? I mean, from the creek to 54th?
Oh, no, sorry. I meant how many, there's 70 signatures on the petition, but I don't know how many properties that corresponds to. Because like sometimes 2 members of the same property will sign the petition.
Well, in that stretch, I think maybe there's 6 properties.
Right. Yeah. There's about a half dozen properties that are directly impacted.
Yeah.
We've also been talking to a number of residents on 56 along 56th Street in the Melody Lake Project area, who've expressed concern or opposition to the proposed sidewalk, but we have not yet received any formal petition. The public comment period for the speed limit evaluation closed a couple weeks ago. We received about 130 comments. Of those, 53% were supportive of staff's recommendation. 14% were supportive of a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, similar to what Minneapolis has. And then about 23% were unsupportive of the recommendation. So about 70%, 70 to 75% of people who shared a comment were generally supportive of the city's initiative to reduce speed limits. So we're moving forward with we're preparing that final engagement report, which we'll bring to the commission for review before bringing it back to city council. But in general, our work regarding that speed limit change or a possible speed limit change is going to continue into 2021. And then the last thing I have is that staff met recently with a representative from Our Car to talk about a possible partnership opportunities with the city. For those that are unfamiliar, Our Car is a nonprofit car sharing service that operates within the Twin Cities, and I believe they have vehicles in Rochester as well. I shared an article about they're launching a new electric vehicle mobility network in Minneapolis and St. Paul starting next year. So we're looking into the possibility of them operating in Edina with shared electric vehicles. And those of you who looked at the 7001 France memo or their proposal, you may have noted that in that proposal, they specifically noted that some of their parking stalls would be designated for Our Car. And that's all I have.
Hey, Andrew.
Yes.
About the Our Car, I was just curious. I know that in Minneapolis, I think they have some that park on city streets. I'm assuming we're looking at things that are designated spots in light of the parking ban on our streets from November to April. Is that accurate or not?
Yes, at this stage, I would say that's accurate. In addition, because their proposed fleet next year is all electric vehicles, they would also need to be at a designated. They would also need to be parked at somewhere where there's an EV charger. So we would be looking at kind of designated parking spaces for those rather than just on street. The exception would be obviously the users who check them out can certainly take them and park them on the street wherever their destination is. But the general idea then would be to return them to a hub.
Thanks.
Very cool.
Did you get an update? Last time we asked about the costs of all the signage and all the costs of changing the speed limits. Do we have that? Have you been able to put the figure together?
Still in progress. I don't have it quite down yet because we're still making considering some minor modifications to the proposal based on the public feedback that we received.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. So our next meeting.
Thursday, December 17th.
Okay. So the week before Christmas.
I'm guessing it'll be virtual, but I'm not positive about that. But if I were a betting man,
I'd be there also. I mean, it's 4 weeks, right? Well, anyway, I will then take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Real good. Andrew, you want to run through the roll call?
yes. Commissioner Aller,
Hi.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kane,
Aye.
Commissioner Lafferty,
Aye.
Commissioner McCarthy, Commissioner Plum Smith,
Aye.
Chair Richmond,
Aye.
Commissioner Shearer.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned. See you guys next month.